Hey y'all, I'm Paige Feldman. I'm a writer and director, and here on this YouTube channel, I'm documenting the making of my debut feature as a writer-director. It's called Back to You, and it's a contained romantic comedy, and right now marks the 2-week point since my last revision, which means I am gearing up for my next revision. Writing takes a while, so I feel like I've been saying stuff about my revisions and stuff for a while, but I'm finally at a turning point because in the past, in order to prepare for my next revision and my next revision, I've been re-outlining the entire script. I've been going and seeing what I have, seeing what pieces are where, which ones need to be rejiggered and moved so that they fit better, and which ones need to be just like completely excluded and tossed aside. But this rewrite, finally, I am in a place where I don't have to do any of that retooling. I don't have to re-outline. All of my pieces are in the proper place, which is really exciting. But that doesn't mean that I'm going into this rewrite, this next revision, blind. It just means that I have to change my mode a little bit in terms of how I prepare for a rewrite, because I am a super outliner. I like to have a plan so that when I get into my work, I'm not thinking about what I need to do. My brain isn't occupied with all of my to-do lists and check boxes and everything. I'm just able to read what I have on the page and go through it. And so for this rewrite, I have a 1-page cheat sheet, which is right here. It's not even a page. It's like 3/4, 7/8 of a page. I didn't put it in a screenwriting program, so it's not giving me the total breakdown. I'm just estimating. And I wanted to share this with you because if some of you aren't like a super outliner in the way that I am, or if it feels like way too much work for you before you get into a revision, but you maybe want to find a way to help you remember what you want to do, what your intentions are, and really focus on the elements that matter. I thought I'd share this with you because this might be a great in-between solution for all of your revisions, or if you're like me and a super outliner and you want to see what happens once you get past the point of needing to like fully restructure your script every time or double check that your structure is okay, what you can do to continue to have a plan and all that. So without further ado, I'm just gonna screen share and show you exactly what I have here because that's the easiest way to do it. And also I love a screen share. So one moment, please. All right, so here I have in my Scrivener document that has all of my outlines and goals and character wants and themes, all of the stuff, my preparation stuff that I've created for the script. I've added a little, I need to find it in the side here. I've added a little, it's called Rewrite Cheat Sheet, is what I'm calling it. It's not even like a re-outline. It's just basically my to-do list, but with a little bit more information. So it ends up being about this big, but in order to see it on the screen, obviously it's gonna be a little bit longer, not that much. So here's how I've organized it. I have 3 things that I'm looking to fix or really focus on in this revision. And so I've added bold headlines for each of them. Character voice, give them a history, and Mitch's ending. And character voice is something that I knew I needed to focus on this next one. That was going to be my intention for this revision the whole time. Once I got everything into place, I just want to make sure that the characters sound and act consistently and also sound and act like I intend them to. And also make sure that they're interesting and fun and dynamic and original, unique, not just cookie cutter people, because I love quirky characters. I think if I were to describe my character style in terms of how I build characters, I want to make the side characters, you know, like the really cool, interesting best friend characters that you have in all of these romantic comedies, the ones that can be a little bit wacky. I want them to be my protagonists. And so it takes a little bit of effort, a little more effort to get them there. So that's what character voice is all about. Then these next 2, give them a history and Mitch's ending, came from revision notes that I made on my lovely, this is my outline from my previous draft. It is so just like, see, I use it and I check things off. And I've made these little notes here, like in pen, where I noticed something when I was rewriting that wasn't really tying into my goal for the current rewrite, but I knew I needed to fix. And so give them a history and then Mitch's ending were both there. Mitch's ending was actually something that my writing group brought up with me in a previous notes session, and I've kind of been mulling it over for a while, and it wasn't quite, this previous revision was like way too involved in terms of like restructuring and making sure all of the midpoints and everything made sense, or all the plot points, not just the midpoint, but all the plot points made sense and were in the right place, and everything was progressing in an actual order, and that all of the conflict was building to something, and I wasn't ping-ponging back and forth between everything's great and everything's terrible. And Mitch's ending felt like a little bit too, even though endings are super important, it felt a little bit too granular to deal with, but I finally feel like I'm ready. So with all of that being said, I want to take you through this whole situation and just tell you what I've done with this cheat sheet for me, so that if you want to copy this format, you can kind of see what might work for you based on my system that I've created already. Because this is all, like, this channel is always, it's never a how-to, it's a how I'm doing it. And so if you want to copy me, please feel free, like in terms of methods and things, not my work. But I don't have like tips for how you can do it, but I'm going to show you how I do it, and you, I'm sure, can infer what's going to work for you from this. All right, so getting into this, like I said, character voice right here is my primary concern with this revision. And because I have two main characters here, Ash and Mitch, these are the two voices I'm focusing on. I've done voice rewrites in the past. I'm gonna take just two characters or just one character, or maybe like just three, like not just three, but three characters. That feels like it's pushing it though. I've done separate rewrites for each character. I've done rewrites where I've tried to do it for like 6 characters, and that never works because there's too much jumbled up. 2 is a pretty happy spot because then you're not going through with just one character, not really changing the other characters' responses to them, and then having to go through the whole thing and then change response. Like, it just becomes messy, especially because even in voice, even when it's this like granular level of lines and dialogue and behavior, if behavior changes slightly, outcomes are going to change slightly, scenes are going to change slightly. And so they're choosing maybe like 2 people who interact together a lot and just going through their scenes alone and seeing how those change and evolve as you get closer and closer and hone in on their voices. That I think works the best. And luckily for me, for Back to You, Ash and Mitch are together alone are like 95% of the movie. So I have Ash here, and this whole section is just what is his voice, and Mitch's whole section is what is her voice. And I've tried to lay it out so that their voices are opposed and related, because it's really important, especially in a romantic comedy, that the 2 leads have some sort of relationship to each other thematically and behavior-wise. That's how chemistry kind of comes together, when these 2 opposite forces or different forces react together, and they have to react with each other. So Ash is literal and scientific. He makes puns. He is to the point, and accuracy for him is paramount. Mitch down here is metaphors and feelings as opposed to literal and scientific. Truth bombs is her. Ash does puns as humor, but also as like a defense mechanism. So Mitch's defense mechanism here are truth bombs, which she sometimes just accidentally sets off because she doesn't stop to think. Meandering down paths to her words as opposed to the point. More concerned with impact than accuracy. Accuracy is paramount. These are what I need to be looking out for in every single one of their lines and their actions. And then for each of them, I have included a like paragon scene, a scene that is an example of what they are bringing to the table, so that if I'm in doubt, I can just reference that in my mind. I might even print these scenes or lines out to kind of have them as a reference the whole time. For Ash, it's a chaos scene, which I talked about in my video last week when I was talking about morning pages, and I'll drop a link up there so that you can take a watch of that, and hopefully I'll try to cue it up to the portion where I'm talking about my little epiphany. Mitch says something about how like everything is going to be in chaos, and Ash explains that chaos in science is a different concept than just things running around with no explanation. That scene, the fact that he goes to a literal scientific place when Mitch says something about how something makes her feel, that's the Ash that I need to channel in every single scene and line. For Mitch, I have a description line that I wrote here. And this description line is something that came during my first draft. It's one of those, and I know if you're a writer, you know this, there's like a few lines, a few phrases that you never touch after that first draft. It's just like, it comes out perfect. And this has always been my example, my paragon for Mitch, which is Mitch is a timid hurricane. She tilts him off his axis. Axis. Mitch is a timid hurricane. She tilts him off his axis. So she doesn't let Ash out-logic her. Her feelings are valid and just as true as his facts. So that is character voice. These are the things I need to make sure that they are emoting, they are telling, and then an example for each of them. Next, give them a history. So would you rather just... Basically, here's the deal with all of this. Ash and Mitch fell in love with each other 18 years ago, and then they come together again for the first time in the story. And this whole... It's all great, but as I was reading, I realized they don't have like a sense of history with each other beyond being mad at each other. If they fell in love, which they did, there needs to be something that they connected on, something that really brought them together. And there's this whole scene in the second act where they're going on a treasure hunt, and Mitch is trying to make Ash feel better by playing Would You Rather. The first one is like, would you rather drink an entire bottle of Tabasco or eat a whole watermelon, rind and all? And it's a fun scene, and I initially wrote it because I was like, I need them to have something to talk about, to argue about, to show their opposite viewpoints as they're on this quest for this like treasure. It was a fun idea, and I was thinking, oh, I need to replace this. I need to give them something that's going to like really feel like a history. And then I had the epiphany that why would I want to write a scene where there's talking about like navel gazing, talking about their history? Like as teenagers, wouldn't a game be a way that they could connect? Like what if Would You Rather is their history? What if I built from this block, from this scene that I really like, that has some really great jokes in it, and then seeded things from earlier, and maybe even later, but seeded things earlier that would make it so that Would You Rather feels like their history. And when they actually play, it's like a breakthrough. So I really liked that idea because I love the Would You Rather scene. I love the jokes. Everything's great. But it just doesn't feel impactful. But this would make it feel impactful. So what I'm doing is I need to make sure that Would You Rather, the game, is in the first scene 18 years ago to give that basis. And then I'm using the rule of 3 some point in the first act before the ice cream scene. And then during the ice cream scene where they're going to work together, but they're not quite friends yet. So that when finally in Act 2 they play this game, it shows a real turning point. And the rule of 3 being 2 times something happens and the 3rd time something changes. I know that with the Would You Rather scene that I have, it's going to turn into 4 because we have this first one and then 1, 2, 3. But I feel like at this point I'm going to try it out with these 4 because the first act in the ice cream scene is really where we're resetting, and it's like, no, I don't want to play. No, I don't want to play. Yes, I'm going to play. And then finally, Mitch's ending. I watched music and lyrics, basically, and I realized that I think I probably had some fundamental things wrong about how this meeting would probably work. So I did some research, and I need to rewrite. Mitch is meeting with a record exec at the end of this film. Then I wanted to incorporate my writing group notes, which is your ending feels too happy, too certain. So I'm going to make it a little bit more ambiguous where the real happy ending... Oh, a cat just jumped on my desk. Excuse me. Kirk, say hi. He does not want to say hi. Okay. So anyway, Mitch's actual victory is going to be continuing on, pushing herself forward with music, not giving up, and being more confident in herself. And it's less about a full victory in terms of like, the meeting went great. She is just feeling more encouraged and able and more confident in expressing herself truly. And I want to tie her meeting with the record exec into the initial hit song, just to give a little bit more of a sense of like circuitousness and closure and symmetry, because it was just a random record exec at first. So instead of it being a random record exec, maybe it's the producer the artist who sung her initial hit song, the producer and songwriter who sung her initial hit song is now like working with and like is super teams with. So super teams. It's like a big like powerhouse writer producer who has like made her like a star. That's where I am with Mitch's ending. And these are the 3 things that I am focused on in this rewrite. That's not to say that they're the only 3 things I need to focus on for the script, but that's what I'm focusing on in this rewrite. And then after this one's done, like I said, I'm gonna do a polish pass and then set up a table read, which I'm really excited about. I've written to the Writers Guild asking about the possibility of putting the readout on YouTube, whether that's in a gray area, because I don't even want to give the impression that I'm trying to scab or pull one over or something, or not supporting the strike. We'll see what they say. I will keep you posted on that. And so I hope my taking you through this little cheat sheet here was helpful in terms of showing you how you can do a revision plan without a whole outline. If it was helpful, drop me a like, hit me up with a comment, and now I'm gonna go eat some lunch and then start on this revision, because there's not that much to do. It's all pretty granular work, so fingers crossed I can be done within a week or two and be really on track for this early July table read. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with more Cake Fight Presents The Making Of.